Okay, so welcome to week 7 of our program, and the topic we'll be discussing today is business branding. Um, you know, it's one thing to build a product that you believe customers would love and appreciate. It's another thing to know how to resonate with them, to identify with them, your target audience as much as possible. You know, it's it takes some level of intentionality or intentions to getting it done, and that is where business branding comes into place, right? Business branding spans a lot of things from, first of all, in fact, it has to do with two major things: discovery and delivery. Now, the discovery part of business branding is you trying to discover your identity as a brand. What archetype do you fit into? Who do you say you are? Like, how would you position yourself in the global marketplace, right? In the global business ecosystem. And then the delivery part of it is how would you communicate who you are, what you represent, and what you set out to accomplish, right, to your key stakeholders. Key stakeholders spans your target customer groups, investors, partners, and the likes, right? So that's business brand in a nutshell. It's about how you speak to a particular target audience at a particular period of time or over a period of time. Okay, so the next slide, I believe it will reflect in a bit, given the poor network connectivity we're having. But the next slide we have here talks about the 12 brand archetypes we have. It was an initiative that was developed by Carl Jung. Some of us would know him. Um, so what archetype seeks to represent is, as humans, we have behavioral patterns. We react differently to situations. We have different aspirations, tastes in music, in everything we do, in food, in environment, name it. So it is for brands. Brands also have an identity. So some of us might have learned about things like um, what what is it called again? Individual character traits like melancholy, sanguine, choleric, and all of that, right? Now, that is how we are able to identify, if a person behaves a certain way, if a person seems to be more outspoken than than um, than the average person, it's safe to call that person a sanguine, for example. If a person seems to be more of an introverted individual, we can characterize such person as uh, a melancholist, so to speak. Hold on. Okay. Yeah. So it is for brands, right? It's not so different from brands. Brands, through the way they communicate their messages, through the way they deliver their products and services to target markets, right? They they find themselves grouped to one of the 12 archetypes we have here, right? I'll just pick a couple of them briefly. So we have the innocent. They communicate a sense of wonder, purity, trust, and honesty. We have the sage. They communicate, you know, wisdom is their anchor point. They communicate intelligence, truth seeking, clarity. We have freedom. They communicate more of, or the explorers, right? They communicate more of freedom, bravery, non-conformity, and so on and so forth. We have the outlaws, the magicians, the heroes. So every single brand we use, from our tech products to consumer products, each of them falls within one of these archetypes, right? And it will be funny how we would get to understand some of these brands in the next slides, right? Because it's something that's done intentionally from a place of understanding of who they are and how their product would be perceived by their target audience, right? So the next slide, these are the 12 brand archetypes. I'll give it a while for it to reflect on everybody's devices. So, for example, we have Dove. I think Dove is that cream.
Cosmetic.
Yeah, the cosmetic products, and they communicate innocence. If we go back to the previous slide, innocence has to do with purity, trust, sense of wonder. Through their brand communications, if you happen to come across their advertorials, their adverts, you can see that some of their messagings, some of their communications has to do with purity and all of those taglines. And then Google happens to fall within the Sage category, and the Sage has to talk about intelligence, truth-seeking, clarity, right? And then we have Disney. All of us would would very much understand why Disney tags themselves as magician. This is a brand or a brand that has to do with a lot of fictions, right? They've had to do with a lot of fictionary characters, movies, like a lot of wonders that sort of exists outside our everyday understanding of life and our everyday environment, right? So they've been able to communicate this through their movies and the likes. And if you go back to what the magician is, they communicate charisma, cleverness, intuition, power, and the likes. So just like Bezos said, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room, right? How you've been able to communicate your brand through your messagings, down to color, a lot of these intricacies and peripherals very much speaks to, you know, who you are as a brand and how you're going to be perceived by your target audiences over a period of time. So if let's say for example, you're a fintech company and you're trying to disrupt, you know, traditional banking, for example, you're trying to create a neo bank, and that would mean you're challenging the status quo. And typically, you could find yourself under the place of an explorer or an outlaw, right? Given the kind of messages you're putting out there, given the kind of energy or vibe you're communicating to your target audience about breaking from the norms and jumping on the moving train. Those kind of messages more often than not would would categorize you under one of these 12 brand archetypes by default, right? So here is a sample. We are using InQmax as a case study today. And the slides we have here was designed by our in-house developer through some high-level inspiration, you know. So InQmax, given what we do and what we represent, down to the colors. Now, let me speak to colors before we even get into the next slide. Green very much identifies with environment. And the core of what we do at InQmax, being that we stand for sustainability and climate action, environmental stewardship, green as a color already sells what we do, right? And then, so I just might ask a question. So this is for the Emmanuels in the house. I'm hoping we are able to we are seeing this slide at the moment. Yes. So given what you've learned about InQmax so far, what we do, and perhaps you might have come across a couple of other incubators in the space, or perhaps not, but given what you've understood about our approach, how we communicate our values to you guys, which of the brand archetypes would you say we fall under? So I've taken the slide back to the initial one where we have the 12 archetypes. So who is going to go first? Which of the archetypes do you think InQmax falls under? Hello? Okay.
I would say every man.
Every man. Sorry, who's talking? I don't want to slide.
I said creator and every man.
No, it has to be one, right? We can't fall under two archetypes. So you'd have to go with one. Are we the creator or the other one?
Creator, yes.
Oh, so Ikimax represents the creator archetype for you. Nice, interesting. Okay, Emmanuel Akonji, George, Folu, Shegu, you guys could also have your take on this because yeah, just as we think differently, I expect our options to be different. Okay, who's going next?
I'm going next.
All right. So,
For me, I think I'll choose Outlaw.
uh,
The reason being what, based on my past experience, watching incubators and observing it, there's a difference to what is being brought to the table, and the access to pool is actually a lot more different than the other ones I've watched and been through.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's
so it brings a difference, a kind of communism and family in the whole approach. But you have to be first and move at your own pace, not still slowing down.
Interesting. Interesting. So liberation, outlaw. Okay. Very well noted. Very well noted. Okay, who wants to go next?
Hello.
Yes.
I'll go next.
All right.
I'll go next. Well, for me, I'm going to choose Explorer.
Explorer.
Hello?
Why? What's the rationale behind this?
Yes, I'm going to choose Explorer. Well, for me, as Incomas, it's when I've been following Incomas, we have to explore what's around us. We have to make use of the best things that we have in the environment so as to be self-sufficient. Hello?
Nice.
Do you get me, sir?
Yeah. I get it. I like the angle you came.
That's for me.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to. Yes.
So, creator, outlaw, explorer. All right, let's have one more person at least before we move on. Who's going next?
Yeah, I will go next.
All right.
Yeah, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is George. Yeah, so concerning Incumax, I'll place Incumax in the second quadrant, like that leave a mark segment. If you can see that purple, that small donut looking shape, leaving a mark, where we have outlaw, magician, and hero. So generally, what I say about Incumax is we are trying to liberate the environment from our own human actions, right? Sustainability, like how we can do things, how we can improve our lives, and also ensure that we do not damage the capacity of future generations to improve their own lives, right? That's why we are working on all these, climate change and things like that. So I'm also going to go with outlaw because generally we are not magicians here. We are not, these things are not fantasy situations. These are real matters that we're trying to solve. Yeah, so I'll also place Thinking Max under outlaw for the purpose of liberation. Yeah, that is it.
Awesome. What can I say? We are all right, actually. We are all right, but for the sake of sticking to one archetype, Harry, does Harry have where do you think we fit?
Okay, so this is quite tricky, because every one of you is right in a way, and I think you will be saying the same thing with your own brands as well as you move on. In a way, you see yourself playing across different brand archetype. That doesn't mean you don't have a sense of belonging. I mean, it shows you also are impacting across all those aspects, right? So, but again, it's not possible to have a brand color, consisting of all the 12 colors we have here. I mean, you just have to look for something to stick with. So for us at Incumas, we have the sharp green and this one, right? So, but again, there are different rationale to why we arrived at this. But yeah, I'll tell you that for the most part, we're seeking paradise. Actually, we're trying to seek for paradise with the way businesses, operate, and to ensure that we have a better world, and both economically and environmentally, we're doing well, as well as socially, we're also doing well, right? So, but that for us to do that, that means we have to be active explorers, meaning that we're not ready to conform with the status quo. We are brave enough to look into exploring other ways we can make our world a better place, and also help businesses make good returns as well. And that already makes you to know how to become sort of self-sufficient and kind of like make you resourceful. Basically, I think that's the right word. You become more resourceful, and you're not afraid to go alone. So if it comes to that, So yeah, basically this is what it is. And then again, I think another thing that wasn't hinted on here why we chose the color green was also because it shows like something that a viable, something that is growing. It represents life, represents fertility. Represents stuff like that. But again, I mean, every one of us, we are correct with pointing out some areas across the entire spectrum that we have here. The aspects we touch on, right, as well. Yeah.
Okay. I also have asked Cynthia before I asked Eri, but Eri's feedback may have, or perhaps would have influenced our decision, or maybe she'd have a contrarian view. But I'm sure this is something we'll even discuss in house as the time goes on. Okay, let's hear from Cynthia regardless. Okay. Yeah, Cynthia.
Honestly, I think we're even going to talk more about it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, go on.
Yeah, so I think we're even going to talk more about it later on in the slides. There's something that is called Brand Audit, right? Where you get feedback or you do an audit of what the brand is about and what people think about the brand, and then you put that against what their identity is. So everybody definitely gave very great feedback. For me, like there's a bit of everything for me. Like if I was gonna choose, it's gonna be like the explorer part and sage, right? But in every single color, in every single section, there's definitely something that Influence has to do. So yeah, love it.
Absolutely. So part of your deliverables for this week would be discovering your brand archetype. So I want to speak to that before we move on. So a typical approach would be to go back to your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Go back to your purpose. I'm sure you designed your business model canvas. Go back to your purpose. Peruse your business model canvas in its entirety, and then to figure out your why from these four cardinal structures. Figure out which of them really speaks to your why. Are you seeking paradise? Are you looking to leave a mark, build a connection, provide structure, right? And then you extend it into the three what do I call it? The three groupings we have: service, control, innovation, and then that will automatically give you the name or the title of your archetype. But the typical approach would be to first of all figure out your why and figure out which of these four spaces or these four slices of the pie speaks to what you're representing as a brand, right? And then your vision, mission statements, like look at it in its entirety, and then you build it out from there. Right? Cool. That was really interesting getting everyone's feedback. Moving on, let's talk about um, brand colors, right? Now, as we've seen, brand so colors are not chosen haphazardly. They are really not. If you truly want to, speak to your target audience 100%, colors are not chosen haphazardly. Which is why, if we go back to this slide, you're going to see how providing structure, how these three things. If you're a caregiver, you'd have to infuse this color and maybe another relative or unrelated color. But if you're a ruler, you have to choose this shade of blue and then another unrelated color. But truly, if you're able to figure out your archetype, it should coincide with the color code, right? With which your logo would carry, right? And so these are the couple of brand colors we have and what they represent. And if you go back to the archetypes, they are not so different, right? So we have the orange, for example, warmth, cheerful, inviting, friendly, approachable, clarity. So I I wouldn't want to be suggestive, but let me pick Symbiotes as an example. It's just an example. I could even be wrong. Or let me say, I want to be wrong intentionally, but for the sake of this uh, delivery. So, Symbiotes trying to create, trying to provide structure to the agricultural space, market access to farmers, and then access to fresh farm produce to customer groups. So typically, you want to look at the functions of each of them before you even choose a color. Are you looking to provide confidence? Are you looking to promote security, trust, loyalty, progress? You pick some of this. You you look um, um, circumspectively at each tagline, right, under each color code or under each color to ideate on, okay, this is what we truly represent. We represent the environment, we represent positive, we represent peace, organic. Like you speak to some of this, and here's a side note. Some of what you're going to pick here, from your archetype down to your brand color, some of the qualities of your brand colors would even shape your company culture or can be an integral part of your company culture, of what you represent uh, as what would be your company culture. So, for example, if you're a brand that happens to fall within the yellow category, you want to create an environment that speaks to some level of high energy, to some level of fun, energy, optimism, and these are things you do very intentional from the initiatives you'd empower within your organizations or within your startup to how you communicate to your customers. You want to communicate, you know, optimism, high energy to your um, target audience. If you're choosing anywhere within the orange category, you can choose to communicate some level of clarity. You can choose to prioritize, not just communicate, prioritize. And now, I'm not saying you can't still pick other qualities here to communicate across your businesses. No, that's not the point. But primarily, you should be looking to, double down on what your brand colors are communicating first, and then look at other key qualities you can capture or you can imbue into your company culture and the likes. So back to brand colors, it's very very essential that you consider how a brand color would affect your messaging, would affect how people would see or perceive your brand, in the short term and the long term, you know, and it will affect your communication, critically affect your communication, right? So these are things you do as intentional as every other aspect of building a startup, correct? Let's look at some examples now, just like we did for the archetypes. Now we have, let's pick Amazon. Yeah, since it's quite popular, so we have Amazon and Nike under the same category. So they communicate, so they are friendly, cheerful, and confident, right? If you go back to this slide, the orange, we have cheerful, and we can say for sure these brands communicate that as much as possible, right? Even in their taglines, in their messaging, the way they build out their, like in their innovativeness, you can see how they communicate this as much as possible. So we have Coca-Cola on the other side, on the red outcome, we have Coca-Cola, we have KFC, Virgin Atlantic, and these guys communicate excellence, boldness, youthfulness, or, or being youthful. And again, if you look at how they, it really has to speak to every part of your business now. You know, how you launch into the markets, how you gain customers, how you gain your market share, how you retain customers, how you build, innovatively. It would have a direct correlation with your colors and what it represents, as well as your archetypes over a period of time. Sometimes it's something founders are not quite aware of, and after they've built out their startup to some level, and it's something they now notice in retrospect. They'll be like, oh, so this is what we've been representing all along, and we didn't even know. Some startups they've happened to be consistent in that, and some they've not been so consistent across building these things intentionally. But regardless, um, it's to gain a good advantage and to build startups that stand the test of time, to build for sustainability, to build startups that will outlive you. It makes a lot of sense to be intentional about all of these things. If some of these brands here are, are very old brands, are very, very old, matured companies, right? And these are things they took into consideration over a long period of time, and they be consistent in doing that. All right? Design is silent. It is a silent ambassador of your brand. Exactly. So for those of us that have um, a team member on our startups that happens to have an affinity for design, this is an opportunity for you to showcase your talents, like prove to the team how much, how creative you can be in branding and designing um, your your startup's logo, archetype, communication, and all of that, communication and designs and all of that, right? So at this point, I'll let Cynthia take the lead to discuss, to bring us up to speed and shed some light for us with regards to brand communication.
All right, thank you so much, Benjamin. And I'm sure you all are taking notes because I think first of all, I'll say you're very lucky that you're able to learn about these things now, right, at this stage in your business, because many startup founders that went on to build massive companies, they weren't able to lay this foundation. So what happened is that by the time they begin to build really big, they realize that what is in their head is different from what they are seeing in reality. And so it becomes like really, really hard to begin to put the pieces together. Right. So by the time I go on, you really understand what I'm saying. I'll just give a couple of examples so that you can see how important it is for you to spend time doing this in as much as you are also building your product, right? So now we're talking about brand communication. Okay. So please can you move to the next slide?
Okay.
Or should I just share from my screen? I think it's best if I just share from my screen.
Okay, should I stop sharing? But I've moved it though.
Yeah.
It may be a bit late, but
okay. Let me just share from my screen so that it's just easier.
All right, let's do that.
No, let me share from my screen so it's easier to flow.
Not gonna give us.
All right.
This thing I feel
Okay. So, right. So I'll be talking about brand communication, right? So for you to be able to understand what it's about, you need to know who are the two people that, or the two categories of people that you're constantly communicating or revealing what your brand is about, right? Because that will help you in creating a much more compelling brand, right? So as a company, you are constantly interacting with the interior, that's like the internal part of the company, and then the external part of the company. So for the internal part, you have your employees, your partners, right? And for the external part, you're dealing with your customers, people that you're providing service, your service or product to. Now, these two different parts are very important in defining your brand, because how people think about you is very important, and it will impact whether or not they do business with you. And there's certain things that you definitely need to think about that would help, build people's confidence to either get employed into your company or desire to want to become staff or employees of your company or partner with you for certain projects or actually buy your service or your product. And you really need to start thinking about this right now as you're in the early stage of building this brand. Okay? So both arms, which is the external part and the internal part, follow the same pattern. So for you to develop the brand identity for your business, right, it's pretty much the same pattern, which is what I'm going to be talking about, right? It's called the brand pattern. Okay. Confirm if you can actually hear me, just to show that we're.
Yeah, we
I can hear you.
Right, fantastic. All right, so what this brand pathway does is to help you, practically develop a brand identity or create a brand, because it has to be a very systematic process. And with this pathway, you need to see all the different things you need to think about, right? What Benjamin has shared to you is the reality of things, right? You need to know, okay, this is what you're supposed to do at the end of it. This is what you're supposed to achieve, at the end of it. These are the things you need to think about. Colors, right? Even the shapes, right? They have an effect, right? So all those things are very important. So what I'm going to be showing you is how to actually get there, right? I'm using the brand pathway. Right, so first you need to understand the first point you have there is brand, right? So that's your brand voice, your brand personality. Brand voice is what you're constantly speaking, what is you're constantly speaking, and then we'll talk about what's constantly being perceived, right? Then your brand personality, the archetypes, right? So very important. But the focus there is the brand. Now, for every brand, there are two sides to it. There is what you communicate or what you reveal to the audience, and there is what they experience. It's never one or the other. It's always the same, right? Let's say you're the company, you're a very fantastic company, and you keep saying, oh, we're a very fantastic company. We give all our customers the best customer service experience, right? 247 calls and all of that. And then, in reality, customers are calling you and not picking. And they just have the worst experience with you, right? So pretty much what you're saying, they're not experiencing it. And that also contributes to your brand, because at the end of the day, that is what we take up. That is what will be filled into your identity, such that if any random person should just go into a new country and they see, they say, oh, I'm looking for this particular thing, no, don't use those guys. Those guys are not trustworthy. Do you get what I'm saying? I want you to think about, just one or two companies that, you've heard them say certain things, and what you experienced was entirely different from what they told you. Just anybody, give me one or two brands that you know. Anybody?
Oh yeah.
For me, my experience with Jumia is bad.
With what?
Jumia.
Jumia. Okay. Okay, tell me about it.
Purchasing something for my mom. over the years. What was going on inside was different from what we got delivered and we couldn't deliver.
Interesting. 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 All right. Who else?
I wanted to say this entities that used to be telecom entities and so sorting themselves and be like ready to connect you anywhere. And also PSS the electricity company of Manila.
Okay, thank you. So you see here now, this review part is what is another term for that is called your brand promise, right? Your brand promise. What exactly are you promising customers? What exactly are you saying that we're going to do for every single customer? This can also be your employee. Like I said, this practically works for both internal and external, which is like your employees and customer support employees. What exactly do I want my employees to experience once they come to work at at my startup? You have to be intentional about it, right? You don't just leave it to the air, right? You have to intentionally plan towards it. So what are you promising your customers? This is what every customer should be able to experience. Is it quality? Is it they should be proud of the brand? They should be willing to talk about the brand anywhere. They should be able to get 100% quality. Think about Apple, right? They promise quality. They promise quality. So quality as best, excellence, and they always give that. Customers experience this quality. They constantly experience quality, and that's actually what really feeds into the brand, and that's why people are able to trust the brand. So at the beginning, what you're trying to do is define the brand and be able to create that brand trust. You really need to think about your brand promise. So review, right, is what you are telling your customers. Experience is what they are getting from, is what they are pretty much experiencing or getting from whatever you've told them that you're going to do for them, right? So the review is pretty much the external picture, right? What you're constantly saying. So in that case, you're the one that is constantly doing something to create that idea or that image of what your business is about. You're the one taking from within and then expressing it on the outside. So that's why it's called like an external picture. It's what you paint that people are then able to interpret, right? So that one is your responsibility to be able to define that. So we're going to talk more about it, right? Now for the experience, it's now the internal structure, right? One of the things you need to put in place to ensure that this promise you've made is what customers will experience. That this promise you've made is what your employees will experience. So that requires you going indoors and say, okay, if we say we're going to give our customers quality products, but they're going to get 100% quality, that means our internal operations have to be like excellent. Think about Amazon, right? One of the things I really loved about using Amazon, especially in the UK, was how they constantly improved on their operations. And so one time they promised same-day delivery. It sounds impossible, but they made it possible, right? So they promised that we're going to give you same-day delivery for certain products that you order. And if you order it that day, you get it at that same day. And it's not food, right? It's just products. And for them to be able to achieve that promise, right? For them to be able to achieve that, but they have to go inside and say, okay, how do we build up our distribution centers and fulfillment centers so that if a customer should make an order for a same-day product, they actually get it. So they set up different fulfillment centers across different cities in the UK, right? Having trucks shipping in to and fro, always keeping track of when stock is going down, when stock is up, keeping track of different data to be able to determine when they should actually ship in more product, just so that their same-day promise would be achieved. Can you see? Can you get the picture now? Do you get the picture? Good. Are you guys with me? Can you guys hear me? Alright. So this is very important. The brand is a combination of your promise and your customer's experience, or your target audience experience, or your employees' experience. It is what you say to them that they're going to experience and what they eventually experience. But what does that mean for you? It's not something you leave to the wind. It's something you have to go back and say, how can we ensure that this promise that we made to our customers, it will be fulfilled? If we say, we are the company that you can trust for all your food stuff, they're going to get it fresh, and fresh products always, will always give you fresh products, right? For you to be able to achieve that, get that onto them, you need to build the right internal structure. So you can't put that aside. So operations and customer service is just some of the many things. Right? You need to put data tracking systems using Excel sheets to know how many is going in, how many is going out, so that they're constantly getting that from us. Now let's break that down a bit further. So I've shown you what the internal structure is. Now let's break down this external picture, because at the end of the day, you first have to reveal something to the world or to your customers, and then they will experience what you reveal. Right? Then they will experience what you reveal. So now, to be able to reveal that, you're more or less painting an external picture. So let's break down this external picture a bit further. You have two parts to it. There's the visual representation, and there's the vocal representation. Right? So for the visual representation, what you're doing is using things like shapes, colors, text, right? Just like Benjamin has explained, right? How colors have an impact on people's emotions, right? If somebody should tell you, "Oh, I'm feeling blue today," they're using the word blue, but the color itself has a way of changing the emotions of people, right? It's the same thing in brand. Every color has a value, and you've already seen that, so I'm not going to go deep into that. So you need to understand that, okay, this is what you need to understand. Okay, it's always from the bottom up. This is what I want our brand to be known for. What colors actually help us communicate that promise, right? Get that again. This is what I want our company to be known for. What colors, shapes, or text will help us achieve that, right? If you've noticed over time, there's been a transition from sharp edges font shapes to round edges, right? I don't know if you guys have noticed that amongst the different apps for UI UX. Has anybody noticed that? Has anybody noticed that? Yeah? Okay. Yes. So there's been a transition.
Yes, I have.
Okay, fantastic. There's been a transition such that even Microsoft in their next version of their OS, they're not going to be doing sharp edges anymore. They're going to be doing round edges, and that's what is shared, right? You look at some of the logos, some of the brands, you just see that there's a lot of sharp edges have a representation, round edges have a representation. At the end of the day, it's not sharp edges to tell you what your brand is about. It is your brand telling you whether you should use sharp edges or round edges. That is very important. Even for text, right, as well. So for the visual representation, what can be done is you guys as a team, you sit down together. By the time we go to the vocal representation, then you understand how you guys can do that as a team. After you define the core of the business, you then begin to figure, okay, does this actually achieve that or not? Another thing you can do is to leverage the assistance of a good graphic designer or a brand designer who can actually help you with that. But if you guys cannot afford that, it's something you can do internally to define. But just make sure that the core of it is what is the center, because as you grow, there will definitely changes here and there. You've seen the transition of logos of different brands, BMW, even McDonald's, Apple, they've transitioned. But the core of everything, like the core was what was stable, while the visual representation was what was changing, right? So I'm going to talk about the core, which is not like the vocal representation, right? The core of the product was the same. Apple has been preaching the same message since the beginning, right? We're different. It's a different product. We're here for the creators, the creatives, right? And they've been doing that consistently. Like, regardless of whoever buys Apple products, they know their core audience. They know the right words to use for them. I don't know if you guys have seen the latest, the ad for the video ad for the latest Apple product. Have you seen it? The latest one has MacBook Pro 13. Have you seen it? Has anybody seen it?
I've not seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Tell me about what you noticed. No, don't tell me about the product. Everybody knows that Apple is fantastically excellent. But tell me about what you noticed about the video ad, the latest one.
Let me call him back.
Have you seen the latest one? Someone said you've seen it.
Yeah. Actually, what I was more concerned about is their new M1 chip. Like that was what I was really focused on, like the actual processing power. I didn't really look at the aesthetics. Of the new product. I was focused on the chip itself.
Okay. All right. Who else? Okay. All right. Great. So this is small. Just go back, right? You guys should look out for the video, the latest video. And what I want you to look out for is the communication. From the video, you should be able to discern who their target audience, and who they're building their product for. Yes, there are other types of people, luxury fans who want to have access to Apple products. But the core of their business is still the same. They know who they are serving. The reason why they're making their processors really fast, taking some boosts to different parts of the computer, is because they know who they are serving for. And they're constantly upgrading for those guys. We're going to talk more about that in the book presentation. Okay, so go watch that and make your observations based on that. You definitely learn a lot. I also recommend that for you to be able to improve on your marketing skills is by studying what other people have done. I really watching and learning from brands like Coca-Cola. How do they go about communicating this idea that they have concerning their business? Right? You can check out a particular page on Instagram. There's a page on Instagram called Live with Linda, and what she does is just put up different videos of different brands from all over the world, different video ads or picture ads from around the world. Just see how they're able to communicate their brand promise. Because it is one thing for you to say, this is who we are, within your team, maybe you guys will say that this is what our promise is, but another thing to be able to communicate that in a very creative way, that your target audience are able to interpret that same promise. Because, there's one end where you say, okay, this is who we are, and then you put out the ad and people are misinterpreting the text. Right? The misinterpretation can come in form of like maybe in a particular country, if you use a particular word, it means a particular thing. But if you take that same word to another country, it means an entirely different thing. I hope you know that kind of thing exists. Did you know that kind of thing exists?
Yes. I don't know.
Yes. Okay. You didn't get me?
The kind of phone you were saying, I heard that part where it said, put up your hand. I didn't get you.
I didn't get you. I didn't get what you said. Is that a question?
I said, yes. I got that part where you said, put your hand out. But then, everything you said, then you said putting your hand out, and did you get this type of phone or something like that? It wasn't really.
It's my hand. I really don't understand. Is anyone understand what you said? I actually don't understand what you said. Anybody?
Okay.
Okay. Someone's about to say something.
Yes, I think we're talking about brands that usually have different meanings when you take them to different countries, like different settings, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's why I stopped. Is that what you missed out on?
No, I did not miss out on it. I was just trying to catch up whether I missed anything. Or yeah, that was what I was talking.
Okay. So what I was, let me just backtrack a bit. So what I was saying was that one of the ways, there's one thing for you to know what your brand promise is. Like you define it within your team. I said, okay, this is what our brand promise will be to our customers. There's another thing for you to be able to communicate that effectively to them. So that when you communicate it either through videos, video ads, text, picture ads, they are able to get that same interpretation, even down to the use of words. Because in one country, you might use a particular word and it means something, and in another country, it is not interpreted in that same way. Right? It means maybe something very insulting. So there has to be a lot of that research, especially when you think about your brand on the global scale. Because you guys are not planning on staying national, right? It's global impact, right? So these are things you definitely need to think about in defining your brand, right? So I just dropped that there. So you need to check out a page on Instagram. It's called Live with Linda, LIVWITH. Live, LIVWITH with Linda, LYNDA. LYNDA. So if you go on a page, you just see like a massive. You can scroll through different ads, communicating different things, watch and be inspired by.
Share that on the chat. I think that would help. If you can leave the link on the chat.
Okay. I'll do the ones. Okay. So once I'm done now, I'll do that. I don't want to leave the page, but yes, definitely. So yeah, go to that page and get inspired. So let me go down to vocal representation. So for vocal representation, what that means is, what are you saying, right? Your pictures or your video ads can say something, but it's not really. It's really down to what you're saying as a person, as the visionaire, the person who is starting the business, the founder, right? It's what you're saying, what you want people to experience from your product, right? Right. So first thing you think about is the world vision. What exactly do we want? What do we want?
Hello. Sorry, Cynthia, I missed out on the last thing you said. Our network. I think it's the network. I wish today is just Friday, so I'll just end the week. With all these networking issues, just starting the week like this. Okay, is there another person hearing Cynthia? Because I can't hear from here. We'll finish this program. Okay, George, I don't know if you can. Okay, she's back.
Alright, guys, sorry about that. I'm back now. So just to confirm, you guys can hear me very well.
Yeah,
right?
we can. Okay.
You all can hear me well. Great. Okay, so back to vocal representation, right? So it really starts from what you want your company to do, right? At the core of everything. This I would even say goes beyond like the tagline. It goes beyond like the short phrase. As the founder of the business, as the initiator of this plan, or as the founding team, right? Part of the founding team, what do we want this company to represent? 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 200 years from now, what would people say, right? Think about a company like P&G. How many of you know that this company has been in existence for over 500 years? Do you know P&G? Do you know P&G?
Yes.
Huh?
I have no idea.
I didn't know it was up to 500 years.
It's more. It's more. I met one of the staff who actually has worked with the company for 30 years plus, right? In the UK, right? And just interacting with him, I just saw there's that consistency. Why would someone want to work in a company for 30 years plus? Like when he was 18 or so, that's when he started working in the company. Now, this company, P&G, was founded by two friends, and it started from candle making. They're just making candles. Now they're making 100 plus products across the world. The Ariel, the Almost, the different FMCG products that you think about actually comes from P&G, right? So the question is, how long do I want my company to be for? And what is that consistent name I want people to remember? What is that consistent connection that people should have to, like when they think about where can I get this, where, or it's not even about the product itself, it's about the core of what the value of the business should be. A company that stands for the truth, a company that focuses on giving the best to the entire community or impacting the entire community. So what is the core vision? Because you are here for people, right? You have that written down. And then you think about, okay, so what's the specific service that we're offering right now? Because think about a company like P&G. Yes, they have the overall vision of what the company is doing, but they have individual products that are spread across different countries, right? Different products, individual products. Now, they will not take one product and say, okay, but this product, what is the specific service or the target audience? Now, thinking about target audience, the specific product that we're trying to create a brand for. Right? So, okay, who are the people that are supposed to enjoy? Okay, so for the average, the young mom, maybe a stay-at-home mom who needs to be able to give her children the best laundry experience, they should always choose Ariel. So you have to define that. Who are we serving? Right? We're going to be looking at a chart very soon. Right? What is the target product we're offering? And then you have that written down, and then you make a connection. This is how we want our product to be perceived by the final audience. And then you go back to think about the shapes, the colors, the text, that will help you communicate that eventually. But make sure you start from the bottom to the top, which is what exactly are we here for? What is the value that we want to provide for the next 10, 20 years, right? And 200 years, even more, 1,000 years, right? Depending on how you're able to eat it and drink it. And specifically for each purpose, right now you may be working on a specific product, but in the future you might launch many other products under maybe like a group of companies. Who knows? Right? So that's why you have to take it. Okay, yes, the overall vision is there, but what's the specific target audience or the target product that you're looking at? So let me just quickly go into what is called the brand audit. So what you're doing is to review. So there is one part for you to say this is what we have, this is who we are. There's another thing for your customers for you to say this is who we guys are. These are the experiences that we're experiencing with you guys, right? So one of the companies, so it's started by one of our core values is excellence, right? And that is driven into everything that we do, from the smallest process, constantly improving. So we did a brand audit around late last year, just to make sure that what we are revealing to the world is what they're experiencing. So we sent a survey to all our customers. So that's how it's done, right? We send a survey, we put out the notes. Okay, so we told them answer like a couple of questions. Like when you think about your bookie, right? What is the first word that comes to mind? And so they wrote down about 90% of the people that gave us the response actually said excellence. And that gave us so much joy that, what we are telling now, what our core values are, is really being reflected, and people are constantly experiencing that. So you have to have like a timely brand audit to make sure that what it is that you're saying, what your promise is what they're actually experiencing. And then you take the feedback from that. It was not just that question. We asked all of our questions just to understand, okay, what other areas do you want us to improve on? And you take the feedback from that, and then you use that to improve on your plan to make sure that it reflects the vision. Also, the brand audit gives you ideas on how you can actually scale or do more, because then you're able to learn the things that the customers are experiencing. So take, for example, there's a particular company, I've forgotten the name of the company, but they're into boots. They make boots in I think the US. Okay, before I talk about the boots company, let me talk about a wine making company. Yeah, a wine champagne, I believe. It's not champagne, it's still in the line of champagne products, the wine usually. So they launched this fantastic product, people are using it. And then over time, they saw that the kind of people that were buying their products were, at that time, this is like 10, 15, 20 years ago, at that time were like the Black Americans, those that, the thugs, basically, right? The Black Americans, the thugs, and all of that. Those were the guys that were using our products. So this was after a brand audit, after doing like research, because brand audit comes with different skills, right? So you study how your market is interacting with your product. So they did a brand audit and realized that those were the people that were interacting with the product. And they went back to the team and said, these are not the target audience for our product. Right? This is not the people that were making our products for. But these are the people that are interacting with our product. So because they were very strict on what it is that they want the product to represent, they actually put out a notice, they changed a lot of things so that it became a scandal at the end of the day because it felt like they were marginalizing the Black Americans. But that was a deliberate that was a deliberate action taken by the company to make sure that what it is that they want to sell is what is being experienced. Because maybe at the end of the day, they were budgeting that people in this kind of level will buy your product and need to make sales. But these people are, buying a brand, so it's also adding a bad name to the product, and we don't want that product to represent that. So that's one case. Another case is a boot making company. They actually used it to further the product. So they realized that I wish I could remember the name, so you guys can check. It's a very, very nice boot that is being sold all around the US, right? And US make boot. Very high, so they have very unique characteristics. And anywhere you go, you see that kind of design, you know that it's from this company. So, so they launched the product, and people interacted with it. First, it was the military guys, and then as time went on, they realized that young people in a particular category, those you call the outlaws of the society, those that will wear especially during some of the rock stars. So think about like the white American rock stars with their hair going up different colors, they're spraying their hair, they put like black eyeliners on their faces. Those were the guys that were buying the product, and they were buying it in numbers, right? And they could see how the personality of the brand of the people that were buying it was sort of connected to the product. So they decided to make that into like a reality. So they said, okay, you know what? These are the people that are more or less interested. So they made that into like actual campaigns, like outlaws, like you're an outlaw, we put this for you. Basically different campaigns to solidify that observation they have about the market, right? And the interaction with the product. Did you guys get that? Are we together? Okay. Are we together? We're together, right?
Yeah, from here.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, great, good. I'm happy. I think I've said all of that. No, this is okay. So yes, so that's brand audit. So they're actually the two sides to which we can use it to your advantage and further boost the product.
Yes, ma'am.
Or you can say no. This is not what we want people to see our brand as. We want them to interact with our brand. So it depends on you. So at the end of the day, whatever you get from that, you now use that to feed into your actual visual representation, like your brand art, your video art, and so on and so forth. Now, last is called company culture. So I showed you two parts: the internal and the external. Right. So for the internal, what you're doing is for your employees, your partners, specifically for your employees, right? And then your external is like your customers, right? So for clearly defining what your brand is will help in your company culture. I just released an episode on MailChimp, so part 2 of MailChimp story, right? And one of the lessons there is company culture. like I said at the beginning, you're very lucky that you're able to do this now because many companies have grown. An example is MailChimp. The founder is Ben Chestnut. Right? So he had built MailChimp to a big company generating $200 million in revenue per year. And they had a problem with company culture. And he did not know. Right? And you can go read the article to get like the full detail. But I'm just going to give you like a summary, focusing on what we're talking about today. Where he made an announcement and he got feedback. So the feedback he got, so he made an announcement to the entire employees, right, regarding the progress of the company. And the feedback he got was entirely like, when I say different, people didn't think that they were that the company. So the question they asked is, what? So now that we're growing month to month, we're increasing the revenue. What is the strategy? Where are we going to from here? What's the next one? What exactly are we even doing? So there's the individual assignment or role that your employees are making, but there's the overall connection that they have to the entire vision of the company. And so that was being questioned. And Ben could not even respond. His response to them was, oh, we don't need no strategy. Like, where a startup company, excited people, very, very yuppie. It doesn't work that way, right? So, that entire event actually happened to go back. He took some time off, went for a particular training in a far town from where his company was. Took like a 3-day exit basically, and he went back to redefine it, such that when he came up with this idea for having like a MailChimp university, a MailChimp school of leadership. So he went to a particular university to help him define that. And they asked him, so what's your company culture? What are your core values? And he couldn't even respond. He said, okay, what is that? So we don't even have a core value, right? So those are things he wasn't able to define. It took him years, like $200 million in revenue as recent as the 2000, this season, I think it was 2014, 2015, right? Eventually he did that, but it would take time for that to really cement into the entire company. But you're lucky enough to define a right from now, and you're able to maintain that, right? So this is a very important aspect of company culture. Now, there's another side to the company culture, which is something that many startup founders are getting deceived these days. So there's this idea of what a startup company should look like that everybody knows. I don't know if you guys can give me an example. When you think of a startup company, what's the first thing that comes to mind? When you think about a startup company, like working at a startup company, just the first word, first sentence, tell me.
I'll go for that. When I think about startup, I think of a company that doing something unique, something that has not been started before.
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, absolutely, like something very new, unique, right? So what happened was the early years, that the Facebook times, the Google times, very early years of the Google, Facebook, and so on and so forth. And then before you now think about the creation of the Silicon Valley, there was this whole idea about what it feels like to work at a startup company, right? So you have a cafe there with plenty of snacks for you to eat and enjoy. There is, you can ride bicycles in the hallway, like there's fun, everybody's smiling and happy, enjoying themselves. So there's this idea. So what happened was that a lot of young startup companies were growing at that time that were joining the Facebook. So Facebook has not become as big as Google is not. We're not as big as what they are today, but they're still like earlier. So the younger ones were now trying to adopt this culture, and one of the companies was Dell, right? So this is the founder of Dell speaking, and he was saying that so at the early years of the startup company, trying to vibe into what was going on at that time, he created a very laid back company culture. Right. So what happened was that it eventually became a laid back company. But the early part was more or less trying to be like the Googlers, right? Colors, food, fun, and all of that, right? But what happened that it eventually turned into created this laid back attitude towards work from the employees because they could just chill. They were not hit targets, right? They were not fulfilling certain targets, right? And that made the company like really, really slow down at the point. When he realized what was happening in the company, he actually had to step down and let his wife take over as the CEO of the company, because she was already taking the company towards the wrong turn, right? So what happens in this time is that because of the idea of having a startup, having this very fantastic office space with colors and everything, you're not trying to be like every other person, right? And that's what the problem is. You need to go back to your core, right? Remember the overall vision, right? And say, okay, this is what our company should, and then you create with that idea, not copy what everybody is doing. This is for company culture, right? Not to copy what everybody's doing. Know what you stand for, and then build up systems and structures in place to ensure that your vision is what's different. Because for Google, they're able to create that environment because they know the structures and systems they put in place to ensure that no matter how much fun you want to experience, you're still getting work done. Right? No matter how exciting you want to make the environment, you're still getting work done. So you might be seeing things on the surface, trying to make bicycles and colors everywhere and chocolate on the floor. You need to really go deep and say, okay, what is the HR? What are the HR? What's the HR department actually doing to make sure that there's work? What are the team leads doing? If you don't have access to that information, then stop copying, look within, and then build on that. Right? So this is an example of a brand canvas where you have the questionnaire, right? The descriptive summary of the target customer, right? And then talking about the heart and soul of the brand. Okay, so for the questionnaire, so let's look at the example. That's what I want to focus on. Right? So for the example, you have the questionnaire here, and you're having the details of this particular person. Okay, this person lives in this place, in that place, right? Remember the target audience. So you're having like a clear description of what that is, and then you say, okay, this is the promise we're giving to them, that you constantly have, power. You constantly have access to electricity. And this is the statement that we're making to them. This is the personality we want to vibe. Okay, we're very clean. This happiness, modern, practical approach, and they more or less write an outline of how the solution helps your target audience. So more or less saying, it probably has to do something at this particular time. Thinks of Solar City to be able to execute that, right? So you think about the typography, you think about the colors, and then infuse that into the logo, and what would be the image? What would the image of the images, right? Remember visual representation, right? Think about all the different awareness strategies, the products, the delivery, where would your logos and your colors be found, and even basically taking it from just the visual and the more abstract level, the idea, to actual strategies, putting out, making your video ads sell the same story. Not today you have a video ads selling excellence and very classy approach, and then tomorrow you're having a video ad still within that same period, and you haven't changed anything, talking about fun and happiness and stuff. So just have that consistent vibe to it. Okay, so just to wrap things up, when you think about Rolex, there's no Rolex thing. It's exploded, but then when you think about Rolex, what's the vibe that gets from a company like Rolex? Hello?
There's this sense of experience and fun that uses it. Hello, Mark. Can you hear me? Okay. I said there's this expression of luxury. There's this luxury feel it brings, and the expression of confidence that wearing a Rolex watch tends to portray to people that see someone wearing a watch.
So
and the person that wears it feels a little
All right. So do you think it to be sharp edges or round edges?
Something distinct and sharp will stand out.
Yeah. Yeah, sharp edges. Very good, very good. So what you can do, as an assignment before you guys even start sitting, just study. Check out okay, let me type it out now. Check out the platform, live with Linda, study, observe, learn, and then build, and live with Linda. So there you have it. If you had enough time, I'll show you a couple of videos, but just go on that page and you're going to watch the videos.
All right.
So, yeah, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia, for that. It's been an interesting class today, actually. We're also learning a few as well. To everyone on the call, Cynthia and Ben has been able to fill us in on why it's important, even as a startup. You're thinking about your brand image, your brand colors, your brand communication, and more importantly, about culture. Cynthia spoke about culture. This is also something that you'll be surprised at how much it accounts for startup failure in a company culture, right? So it's something you should be deliberate about shaping what that should look like right now. You have to be very intentional about it, and unapologetically leave that out as a founder. Show that to the people that are joining your team. Why is this important? The truth is that if you're bringing anybody into your team, they'll be coming. Be rest assured that they'll be coming with their own baggage. They'll be coming with their own ideology of what and how they think this startup should operate, how they think this should work, and that might be in conflict with with the vision you have for the company, right? And so it's important that as a founder or as a founding team, it's important you have all these spelled out, right? For example, one thing you guys should also start doing is to create more like a company handbook. Ben, maybe after the call, we could send them a sample of the one we have, so culture handbook and the likes. It's important you have something like that, so you can use that for your onboarding process for subsequent additional members to the team. So you need to have such kind of information that is tabled that helps you to talk to people, right? So it's important. It's important on all grounds, and that's where you outline your brand values and how you expect them to interact and engage with customers. So it's all important. So, anyways, this is a continuous thing, and as we keep building, we'll keep looking at different aspects of that of our business, even on the branding side, to see how much we can optimize it. Well, right now I'm going to just briefly talk about two distinct, aspects of this same branding. So there is what you're supposed to do right now is after the deliverables, after the deliverables for today's class. Part of the deliverables for today's class involves you setting up your business profile across social media platforms. So again, I think I would like to say here that at this stage, this is where some of us are thinking to change names. We should do that before we proceed to this stage of setting up a business profile and the likes. We need to have some kind of presence. Now, this is becoming even important in our own discussions. So I remember since last week or so, we've been having some discussions with a couple of people, and they always want to know, okay, let's see the guys on your portfolio already. And we can't really, we tell them that you guys don't have any strong presence, any strong internet presence. We know the kind of conversations we're having with these guys already. So I think it's becoming increasingly more important that we also try to put things out there in terms of just setting up, even if it's having a presence, setting up the profiles themselves, Facebook profile, LinkedIn profile. I mean, depending on the channel that works best for you, given what your business objectives are. you don't have to be on every social media platform anyways. If you know that your customer or target audience might not probably be on Instagram, there's no point doing that, right? So that's the approach we actually try to follow here. So, but then it's important you set that up so that it can start giving you visibility, in the internet space as well. And to do that, like I said, first, if you need to, for some of us that need, I'm thinking even the two of you needs to rethink your business name at this stage so it can capture the core of what you want to do and has a way of telling a story. I think we've been able to explain a few things about branding, how you can come up with names and the likes, and choosing your colors and the likes. I think this is the point you do that. So I think that should be part of the deliverables for this week as well. So then after that, you use that to go ahead to set up a profile on social media. And that should include at least LinkedIn should be part of it. You need to have a LinkedIn profile for your business. So I would rather not say much here, but I would rather we make this practical, right? So what that means is maybe during office hours, we could, while you're working on these very tasks that are associated with this week, you could just simply just go over it and see how and see what we can do. Let's just make it practical like that. That's what I think. Then, but yes, for your personal profile, I think we've discussed a little bit about this. I think I gave a few hints. It's important you have. I think I would like to start by saying, in these days, in our days of internet, the first impression that anybody has about you is your digital footprint. What does your digital footprint looks like across different social media channels? And I think I shared with us an example of why that is important. For example, there's this founder that was looking to, I was speaking with an angel investor seeking for investment via LinkedIn. And the funny thing was, this founder, given what some of the biases that is being associated with Nigerians, this founder happens to use a hacker's profile, a hacker's picture as his profile picture, right? So the investor turned down, whatever, he cancelled every communication that they were even about to have, and the one they started, and that he doesn't trust him, this, that. And the guy was furious, that why should she, he was just sharing on the founders community where we belong to, and I thought that was quite an immature talk. You want to collect money from someone and you can't even put up your face, your real face. You want to do business with people, you can't even show them what you look like. These are important things. So what I would say regarding setting up your personal profile is that you're doing this. You've taken the part of entrepreneurship. It's important, super important to start building, consciously building your profile, right? So for example, you have LinkedIn. LinkedIn is strictly professional, right? LinkedIn is strictly professional. So one thing you could do here is to look at everything that's required from LinkedIn in terms of a short bio. I would advise you keep it short, very short, that you don't need to click read more, to see more. Even if you have to let it just be just few extra words. Don't try to dole out everything about you under that about you section. Most times people don't read that if it's too long. Just keywords that captures who you are, and then you try to go to a what do you call it? Go to a photographer, a studio. Go to a studio and just take a very good professional picture. 500 at most. Get a good professional picture and change whatever you have, on your profile picture. Make it consistent across your social media pages, right? So Twitter, if you like to keep Twitter professional, I think it works too. For example, I use it. It's both professional and a little bit of personal for me. That's Twitter, but largely it's a professional one. So I also, made it that way as well. Then Facebook, why not entirely professional, but I still captured those aspects of it. I filled out, you just go, every place they are asking for details, you fill out those things. Let it capture even what you do. They have place for education, place for for work experience. You just let those things, let it be consistent in such a way that if I look you out on LinkedIn, I go over to Twitter, I see the same information. There's consistency. I go over to Facebook, I see, because the truth is that when, let's say you're speaking to an investor and they're carrying out their due diligence, they check out all these things, right? So that's one part. If you're also trying to maybe apply to other kind of grants or any kind of initiative, they even request for your social media profiles. I'm sure some of us must have filled out such kind of application where they requested for our social media handles, and they go as far as checking out. Even if you're looking for a job these days, the HR asks for, they request for that. There's a reason, so to see the kind of person you are. So this is where you also take the kind of content you put out there important, right? So you start, depending especially on the professional sites, try to put out things that can say more about what you do, help people understand better what you do, and also show your level of understanding about your market, stuff like that. You can just decide to go in any route, right? But the point is just to keep things professional, engage with people professional. If you want to talk about the daily happenings on Nigeria, you could go to Facebook to do that, not on LinkedIn. So let each of your social media handles let them have a purpose, right? With the sole purpose of helping to shape a good image for you, so that when stakeholders are interacting or trying to check you out, they can see something that will help them make a decision about yourself, and a good one at that. So to be specific, these are some of the deliverables that we have for this week, and that includes to come up with a name, right? Some of what we need to change, for example, UK Bricks, you need to change the name of your business. We're already calling that. We're already used to calling UK Bricks, but we hope that after this week, we would find something that captures, the vision behind what you're doing, like the possibilities that are behind what you're doing. We've talked about it a couple of times. You can see how, on the grand scheme of things, you guys can do even beyond bricks. This is if you decide to currently want to start with, approaching the real estate sector and providing this kind of green goods or green products for the sector. You can also decide to venture out into the textile, the fashion space as well, right? You could also decide to explore other industries where your products could find some level of applicability and the likes, right? So you need to look for a name that captures the big vision of what you have. I know you selected EK Bricks when you just started, but yeah, you've come here at least with the help of the program. We've been able to at least provide some level of structure. So let's have a name that resonates with that, and then for you Symbios as well. Typically, the branding looks very nice, but when you want to relate it to what you do, in fact, people could get confused. So Symbios sounds more biological and like a biotech company, exactly. You see, so that's what typically comes to mind, Symbios, and yeah. So you need to also look for a name that captures at least the bigger vision of what your solution is about. And the next thing is to also map that, to try to also identify your brand archetype. We've given you some of the tools you could use to get this done. So you can use that to map out your brand archetype. And then, did you share anything on brand canvas? Okay, so after the class, Ben will share with you a template that you can use to develop your brand canvas. So this is where you get to capture virtually, how you communicate externally, like Cynthia was saying, how you communicate internally, and just set up is a full stack tool on branding, on brand development, right? So you can use it to develop a brand canvas. Then go ahead with setting up a business profile. It's important to do that before. So we're taking baby steps right now. The next thing would be to secure the domain names, but yeah, we'll get to that later on. Let's take it a step after a time, just so that we are making some level of progress, and we could start talking about securing the domain name for that, right? So yeah, we set up a business profile, Then, lastly, set up your personal profile, given what you've learned as a result of today's course, right? So these are some of the deliverables that we have for this week. So yeah, you want to say something?
Okay, speaking of deliverables, Cynthia, first off, your presentation was very insightful. I totally enjoyed it. Given what you presented, are there any specific deliverables from it, or what you have here pretty much captures what the founder should work on?
Yeah, I think yes, using the brand pathway, I did, brand name, brand color, the vision. Just make sure that don't just go straight to the answer. Show us how you arrived at that point.
Okay.
You understand? So that it will not only help us understand what you did, but also help you look at the different things that you look at, different signs and pinpoints that you look at to arrive at that. So show us the pathway. There's the canvas there. There's the brand pathway as well. Yeah, and do a lot of studies, right? I think that's just my advice to you guys. Just do a lot of studies. Check out the platform, watch as many videos as possible, be inspired, and yes.
Okay, that's great. So for the brand pathway, perhaps if you have it in JPEG, or PDF, you can send it across. So attach it to what I'll be pasting on Slack for them to work with. Right. But yes, just like Cynthia said.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's on the slide there.
Okay. 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 So just like Cynthia said, you also do your researches. Go online and make do what you can find. The recording we made available as well. So which means you can even see the brand pathway on the video recording, right? Which you can work on. You can pretty much work with it from there. So a few things I'd like to capture before we wrap up. So we're giving you guys this deliverable today. Your office hour sessions with each partner starts from tomorrow, I guess. So perhaps one thing you can leverage for the office hours is you ideate on a name and then you present it to the partners for feedbacks, right? And then you make iterations when necessary. So I'm saying this so that you guys understand that the clock is ticking already and you're pretty much on your toes. Ideate on a name and present it, like leverage the office hours you have for this week as much as possible to making sure you guys cover a couple of areas. Both name and perhaps logo if you're able to go that far. But yes, anything you're able to do, you can post on Trello, but also bring it up with the partners so that we can give you feedback in real time and you guys can get started. Okay, Henry is dropping some resources via the chat session for you guys. And okay, going forward, expect the deliverables for this week to be uploaded on Trello, right? New cards with regards to today's class, and then we'll take it from there. And lastly, yes, expect other materials on Slack. Yes, from the brand canvas to whatever resources you want me to give guys. Okay, so any questions before we wrap up? Any questions at all? Okay, Emmanuel, are we good? Are we clear?
Yeah, good for me.
Okay.
I'm clear. It's clear from here, sir.
All right then, that's fine. Okay, so we've brought it to this. We've come to the end of another session. Thank you guys for sticking it out, and we look forward to actively building. We continue. Yes. Um, your outstanding deliverables on Trello, make sure you double down on it. As you can see, fresh cards will be uploaded, so see that you're on top of things as much as possible. All right. Okay, guys. That's about it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Any questions? Any questions? Comments? This would be a good time.
Okay. Any questions?
I don't
Comments?
have.
I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. Okay. Looks like we're clear. Okay then. Since we're all clear, we look forward to receiving some deliverables and let's crush some more milestones. Alright? Okay guys. Bye. Take care.
Goodbye, everyone.
Okay, everyone.
I'm leaving.